Good afternoon, it's 4 p.m. We are bringing you the developing news and the stories behind the headlines. This is Storycon, I'm Regina Lay. These are the stories we're watching this Tuesday, July 22nd. The Interior Department has suspended classes at all levels in government work in at least 30 areas. That's for tomorrow, Wednesday, July 23rd. The move follows heavy rainfall and widespread flooding brought by the southwest monsoon or habagat. The DILG has also ordered forced evacuations in flood-hit areas due to torrential monsoon rains. And in fact, the low-pressure area east of Aurora has developed into Tropical Depression Dante. Pag-asa will issue its first weather bulletin for Dante at 5 p.m. today. And meantime, as of 8 a.m., Pag-asa is monitoring two other low-pressure areas inside and outside the Philippine area of responsibility. Both have a medium chance of developing into tropical depressions in the next 24 hours. The search and retrieval operations for the missing Sabongeros may resume today in Taal Lake. That's after a delay in operations due to the bad weather. Meantime, 12 active police officers have submitted their counter affidavits to the National Police Commission, or NAPOLCOM. That's in response to a complaint filed by self-proclaimed whistleblower Julie Batidongan, alias Totoy. NAPOLCOM says the documents will be reviewed alongside the complaint to determine if formal administrative charges should be filed against the policeman. President Bongbong Marcos met with U.S. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth at the Pentagon on Tuesday, Manila time. During their bilateral talk, Hegseth reaffirmed Washington's commitment to the Philippines, saying that the U.S. remains ready and resolute to defend regional peace. Marcos welcomed the support and stressed the importance of continuing defense cooperation amid regional security challenges. He also highlighted positive gains from the Balikatan exercises and reaffirmed cooperation in the West Philippine Sea. Meantime, Hegseth announced the deployment of new missiles and unmanned systems to boost deterrence in the region, including again in the South China Sea.
The United States is committed to achieving peace through strength and willing to work with all nations who share this desire in the region. We do not seek confrontation, but we are and will be ready and resolute. We're proud to support our mutual economic vitality, including your efforts to modernize your armed forces and collective defense.
But again, I believe that our alliance, the United States and the Philippines, have formed a great part in terms of preserving the peace, in terms of preserving the stability of the South China Sea, but I would even go as far as to say in the entire Indo-Pacific region.
And joining us today, we've got Storycon's resident political pundit, Ronald Llamas.
Good afternoon. A very rainy afternoon.
Oo nga.
Mukhang buong linggo ang maulan.
Very, very rainy. And of course, from the Philippine Star, we've got Editor-in-Chief Ami Pamintuan. Hi, Ami.
Hi, Wedge. Hi, Ronald.
Hi,
Nakarating
Ami.
kayo sa hindi ba baha dyan?
Hindi pa naman dito, but it's raining again. When I look outside the window here.
Sobrang baha.
Oo.
Sobrang baha, no?
Kaya bukas suspended na mga government offices. Yeah.
All classes, classes at all levels, I mean, and government work then in 30 areas. And then, of course, we just got this news, low-pressure area east of Aurora has become a tropical depression, which is named Dante. So at 5 p.m., we'll get the first weather bulletin on Dante from Pag-asa, first weather update. But yun nga, ang daming areas na baha.
Puro baha.
Puro
Oo,
baha.
sobrang baha. Bakit ganon? Kaya naghahanap ngayon ng mga kung ano ang explanation lumalabas.
Konti
Mga
kasi yung
barado doon na concrete, ano?
Ami, konti kasi yung flood control natin, 10,000 lang eh. Kailangan
Oo
doblehin. Kailangan doblehin, gawin 20,000 flood control projects. Masyadong kulang yung 10,000.
Sabi ng DBM, wala kami nalalaman dyan, huwag niyo kami tingnan dyan sa mga yung mga realignment na yan ng budget.
Oh my. I said yesterday 257 billion was
Yeah.
allocated to flood control projects. Actually, I stand corrected. I
Yeah.
think it's up to 300 billion
Yes.
for flood
Yeah.
control.
Yes.
I need to look. I need to double check the final figure. But in any case, the point is,
Yeah.
yun na yung malaki pa rin siya, and yun na yung final version. Remember, President Marcos vetoed up to 190 billion plus in line items, and 16.7 billion of that belonged to were itemized as flood control projects na ni-veto niya in the 2025 budget.
Mas ang tanong dyan, Reg, paano ba iimbestigahan yung mga flood control if they're really working? Parang yung Dolomite, iniimbestigahan ngayon after several years. Eh, yung mga flood control, pwede na ba isabayan? Dahil nitong past 3 years, that's almost 1 trillion. Yung flood control. No?
I think 10 years, in the last 10 years. There's some figures being thrown around online, but I think
Pero
in the last 10
usually kasi
years.
yan, 250 to 350 eh. Nagkaganon yung billion a year. So, hindi lang kasi yan nakalagay sa isang package eh. Iba nakakalat din yan eh, sa ibang agencies eh. Diba? Hindi lang yan naka-consolidate sa DPWH. Naka-spread out din kasi yan minsan.
Maraming district
Posible
level.
naman siyang di ba? Posible ba siyang ma-audit? Kasi kung yung mga engineers natin, I think there's a way naman to audit kung ginawa nga talaga yung project. May specification yan, di ba? Kung flood control, kung drainage, kung desiltation of river, kung clean up ng concrete. Kasi sabi ni Mahar Lagmay encroachment daw ng concrete surface, obstruction of waterways. Pwede naman malaman yun, di ba? Kung talagang pag nawala lang itong baha, di ba?
Yes, pero
Pwede naman siyang ma-check.
Yes, pero the very framework kasi ng ganung karaming flood control, parang mali. Dapat kasi you have only a few flood control na integrated eh. Dahil dikit-dikit dapat yan, di ba? Hindi naman pwedeng may flood control ng isang distrito, may flood control ng isang munisipyo, di ba? Paano yun?
Hindi nga daw ganun ang ginawa, di ba? Hindi ba yung nagkakalat ngayon na kung paano inallocate yung funding for flood control by phases pa for one project, kung totoo one project by phase. Paano mangyayari yun?
Yan yung 142 billion, allegedly. Yung lumabas, no, na insertions.
Yan.
Allegedly ni Senate
yan,
President Chis Escudero. So, merong 3 phases. No?
Yung ham and cheese, although hindi lang kung totoo yun, hindi lang naman doon nangyayari yun. Kahit sa mga ibang agencies, di ba, ganun ang ginagawa nila, binibreak up nila yung project para, apart from that, medyo mahirap i-monitor at saka hindi siya aabot sa threshold 50 million for plunder. Binibreak up nila yung project, di ba?
So it comes under the threshold for plunder.
Below 50 million.
Non-bailable.
That's very important.
Saka mas matindi yung parusa, siyempre.
Yes. Well, we've been trying to get DPWH Secretary Manny Bono on the show, but I think we're talking to him tomorrow instead to again ask what happened to the flood control projects, because last year I remember around this time, then it was during the SONA time. Shortly after President Marcos said, we are rolling out over 5,000 flood control projects, we were hit by typhoon. What was the name of the typhoon last year? Yung malakas-lakas din, and then nagkaroon din ng severe flooding. So we're gonna talk to him tomorrow.
So kasi this will literally rain on the sauna of the President. Dahil ito yung backdrop eh. Kaya mahalaga na may maayos na sagot.
At this point, we gotta bring in our first guest, somebody who may know about the budget. We've got today Finance Secretary Ralph Recto. Welcome to Storycon, Mr. Secretary. Thanks for joining us. We've been trying to get you for a while.
Well, thank you very much for having me. Thanks for the opportunity.
Good afternoon, Secretary.
Hello, good afternoon.
Yeah.
Good
Good afternoon,
afternoon.
Ronald.
Long
Yeah,
time
good
no
afternoon.
see, Secretary.
Yes, long time no see. But nice to be here. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for gracing us finally. First of all, kamusta po kayo? Did I understand correctly you're in Batangas? How's your area?
Okay naman. There are a few areas that there is also a few flooding, but generally I think we're better off.
Okay, so there's been no severe flooding in Batangas.
Nothing really severe.
Okay,
Yes.
that's good to hear. We brought you on first of all. So let's talk about CMEPA first, Secretary, and then we'll talk about the budget later on. But with CMEPA, I think we have the graphic online. So at this point, parang naklaro na yung issues, no? Because it blew up several days ago because people misunderstood what it was. And if we could just, if I could just recap, so what it does is it mostly affects the long-term depositors, whereas before the taxes on long-term time deposits above 5 years were exempt. Now you've imposed a uniform 20% tax on the interest income, meaning yung income, yung interest is the tax is only on the interest earned for the period, not for the principal.
That's correct.
Yeah.
Yes.
So sorry, I'm just waiting
Yes.
for the graphic to be shown on the screen. But go ahead, Secretary.
Yes, that's correct. And, this has been debated both in the House and in the Senate, and the pros and cons were discussed. And eventually, those who, knowing that 0.4% of all deposits are long-term, at maliit lang naman yan, they've agreed to impose the 20% tax, so it will be easier to administer as well.
Now that you've got the benefit of hindsight, why do you think the narrative around this got away? And what lesson do you take away from that?
Well, because of social media, there was a meme saying that, in effect, your savings will be taxed by 20%. And that was the difficulty, yes.
Hindi niyo po na-anticipate yun, sir.
Hindi namin, well, it was only within 24 hours, or it came out, I think, in 5 in the afternoon.
Yeah.
And we corrected it immediately, that it was misleading, that there is no tax on your deposits. There's a noise in the background. It's hard to hear you.
Oh,
Yeah.
I'm not sure where that's coming from.
Yeah.
Okay.
Secretary, anong main purpose nitong
Yeah.
taxes na ito para sa long-term savings? Is it a major revenue?
Frank?
Yeah.
Yes.
Ano
Okay.
yung main purpose natin dito?
No. The main purpose of CMEPA is to deepen the capital markets, essentially, no? So, meron revenue gain yan, may revenue loss. No, so far as the collections from the 20% tax on long-term savings, medyo may revenue gain yan. But then, CMEPA also reduces tax transaction taxes, friction costs or documentary stamp taxes, halimbawa on other savings instruments or investments like UITF and mutual funds. So generally speaking, I think CMEPA is a good bill.
But in terms of revenue gains, it's you're only projecting a gain of 25 billion pesos, correct, Secretary? And that's not every year. That's from 2025 to 2030.
That's correct. But assumes we're able to collect all of it. It's different when you administer it and when you make the targets of how much potentially we can collect. Yeah.
Secretary, sabi nyo nga 0.4% lang itong itatax ng mga long-term savings. Di ba mababa yung 0.%? Di ba disincentive yan para sa mga long-term savings? Di ba mas maganda na lumaki yan?
Yeah, I was gonna say the same thing. Parang it
but the
disincentivizes.
Yes. But the reality today is that only 0.4% of the population or of depositors have long-term savings. It's not so much because of the tax, but I would assume that this would be the low savings rate of Filipinos, no? That's one. But then again, we also have SSS and Pag-ibig, which is tax-free for your long-term savings.
But I think I have to disagree, Secretary, with the premise that anyone who can afford to park their money at the bank for over 5 years is automatically wealthy. I think that's also what some of the thrift banks are saying, no? Parang a lot of them are pensioners. A lot of them are just middle income earners who, want A, safe, predictable returns, and B, they don't understand complicated financial instruments, right? They don't want to take bigger risks investing in stocks, for instance. So, ano yung option doon? Time deposits, right? So,
Yeah.
I don't think these are all
Yeah.
necessarily wealthy people.
I agree totally, but like again, I said, that 0.4% is probably upper middle income to the wealthy. That's based on the data submitted to us by BSP. And like I said, this was adequately debated in Congress. Of course, no one wants to tax long-term savings. But then again, because of CMEPA, the idea is to deepen the capital market, encourage Filipinos also to invest, let's say, in the stock market. Or if you're not interested in that, then you can invest in SSS. Or Pag-ibig, ang SSS, nag-i-invest din sa stock market yan, may fixed income instruments yan. It's a balanced portfolio, tax-free. My advice is that for many to invest also in SSS and Pag-ibig.
But will it
Secretary,
have...
sabi nila, yan nga daw yung gusto nyo kasi na to divert to the, yan na nga, Pag-ibig, SSS. Yun ang sabi ng iba naman na affected, of course, yung savings nila.
Not so much na yun ang gusto ko. That's what the law says. Tagapag-implement lang din tayo. And we understand the purpose of the law as well, right? So again, I agree with all the comments being made. But this is a law passed by Congress that we are implementing.
At 0.4% kasi, Secretary, tayo yung lowest sa region. Will this tax on long-term savings help increase that? Yung 0.4% na yan. Being the lowest in the region.
What will increase that is if more people have jobs and higher paying jobs.
Yeah.
And that's what we're doing as well. That's what will increase that. Okay. So it's not so much only the tax. Again, in other jurisdictions sa buong mundo, meron talagang tax on interest income or in passive income. Sa Amerika, 1913 pa lang ata, meron na to. And in most cases, the rates are even much higher. In the Philippines today, it's just one rate. Why is that? It is also easier for the banks to administer. Their compliance cost goes down. And it is easier also for the BIR to audit and for government to collect. So,
Totoo yan.
there are many good things in theory, like possible multiple rates. But having a single rate is easier to administer.
So ultimately, this is about
Secretary.
simplification as well.
Yeah. Pero dalawang dynamic neighbors natin, Vietnam and Singapore, zero ang kanilang interest sa savings, especially long-term savings. At hindi naman nakaka-apekto negatively sa kanilang bansa. Very strong yung bansa nila ngayon, economically. Nalampasan na nga tayo ng Vietnam eh. So, not necessarily. Yeah.
Again, assuming they do not have a passive income tax on their interest income on banks, they're probably applying an income tax, meaning to say, whatever income you have, whatever passive income you have to put that in your income tax return and pay the corresponding rate on your personal income tax. That's how it works.
Yep. It's true, there are other withholding taxes in Singapore, for instance. But it's still not very clear to me because how this is going to incentivize more ordinary Filipinos to invest in the capital markets. Kasi, okay, forget about long-term deposits, pero parang napipenalize din yung shorter-term depositors. For instance, before, you had a graduated tier, right, for taxing interest income for those investing in between 3 to 4 years, 4 to 5 years, and so on and so forth. For example, 3 to 4 years, you're only paying 12%, 4 to 5 years, you're paying 5%, and now, magiging standardized 20% na, sir, So again, if
That's
I were
correct.
already in the markets and I'm used to paying 5% withholding tax, how will a 20% withholding tax now incentivize me to continue saving, putting my money in the Philippines?
What CMEPA does is that it also incentivizes you to buy mutual funds, UITF, because the taxes there have been reduced. That's one. What CMEPA does is it also incentivizes you. Now, today that you have GCash, wag na kayo magsusugal. Gamitin mo na lang yung GCash halimbawa to buy stocks in the stock exchange. Posible din yun. Ang advice ko sa mga kababayan natin is that halimbawa, kung ikaw mahilig kang kumain ng Jollibee, magandang kumpanya ang Jollibee, nagbabayad ng magandang return ang Jollibee, plus you have capital appreciation dun sa puhunan mo. That's one. O kung ikaw nagbabangko ka sa BDO, halimbawa, you can buy BDO stocks. You can ask your account manager that you're interested to buy stocks with BDO. Or they might have a UITF. They might have a mutual fund as well, that you can have more returns. If you invest in this particular product, you can go ask your bank as well. What are the options? A BDO stock pays dividends. Your capital increases over time. You'll probably make more money than your time deposit in the bank. Similarly, halimbawa, dito ka sa Metro Manila nakatira, gumagamit ka ng Meralco, magandang kita ng Meralco, may monopolya yan sa Metro Manila, nagbabayad ng dividendo yan, even probably higher than your time deposit. And yung puhunan mo, lumalaki din yung puhunan mo dyan. So, gumagamit ka ng Manila Water Maynila, halimbawa, dambuhalang kumpanya din yan, nagbibigay ng dividendo yan. Yung puhunan mo, tumataas din yan. And you can buy this today with GCash, or you can go to your bank, ask your account manager about all these options, and they can provide you with all these options as well. So,
Secretary, compared to interest savings, medyo complicated financial instruments yan compared to savings accounts. Now, are you planning to launch an information campaign man lang? Kasi alam naman natin dito sa atin mga tao, especially the retirees, no? Pag-retire na, parking ko na lang to sa bangko, I'll get the interest at doon ako. Yun ang sinasabi actually ng mga tao. Yun yung income namin from our retirement, yung interest actually. Yun ang ginagamit nilang panggastos. Kaya sila nag-aalala dyan. So if you're planning to encourage people to invest dyan sa medyo mas matataas nga return pero medyo komplikado, I think they will need some help, no? Para advice kung saan sila maglalagay ng kwarta nila.
Dagdag sa sinabi ni Ami, Secretary. Dagdag sa sinabi niya, dahil nga hindi familiar yung karamihan sa atin sa stock and bond markets, no? Lalo na yung mga OFW, ang talagang punta nila ay itong mga time deposit na more than 5 years. No? Kaya,
simple lang yun
yung OFW, hindi apektado dito, non-resident yan. Walang tax on the OFW. Non-resident yan. So they're not affected by this, number one. Number two, this law is also prospective, not retroactive. Okay? Pangatlo, I suggest when there are of this nature in Congress, everyone should participate. Because like I said, taon tong pinag-usapan sa Kongreso, maging sa House, maging Senado, we're not happy with all the portions of the bill, but generally, pwede na. In the sense that it is workable, and yes, the intention is to help develop the capital markets. We want people to save more and invest more. Alam mo, sa economics, S equals investment. S equals I, di ba? So when you put your money in the bank, time deposit, halimbawa, yung banko naman, ini-invest din yan. Di ba? And then they make money out of your savings as well. You can always go to the bank and ask what other products that they have. Kung meron silang UITF, kung meron silang mutual fund, it's always good for Filipinos to scout around. What are the potential investments or savings products that the bank may have?
Sec, rightly or wrongly, and I guess you know this already, you're seen as the tax man kasi. And I think, I suspect that's part of the reason the narrative around this really got away because, it's not a new tax, but I guess because, you're the finance secretary now, when people first heard it, they automatically jump to conclusions now, oh, here he comes again, right? What are you doing to counter that?
But we're trying to explain it to the best of our ability. We're trying to explain that sa totoo lang, those exempt today, more or less, are probably upper middle income class and the rich. 0.4%. Marami dito hindi maapektuhan, frankly speaking. The law is prospective. So if you have already an account 5 years or longer and you have those investments, hindi tataas din yung tax mo to 20%. This is only prospective, no?
Yeah.
At sabi ko nga, dinebate yan ng Kongreso, both the House and the Senate. Unanimous ang vote dyan ng House and the Senate. Di ba?
Yeah.
Pangalawa, with regard to the issue of taxman, alam mo, trabaho natin talaga sa DOF to generate revenue. And we can discuss that if you want, no? Pangalawa, halimbawa, siguro many people associate the VAT with me. You know, when GMA became president, the debt to GDP ratio then, when ERA was president, when GMA came in, was more than 60%. The consolidated public debt was as high as 120%. Okay? So there were revenue measures filed in Congress. Sa totoo lang, I am not the principal author of VAT or the expanded VAT. May VAT na nung panahon ni Cory Aquino, yung dating Pangulo. Ito na-expand during the time of GMA. There were several bills filed. We were the chairman of the committee. We took a look at all those bills. We rationalized all those bills because many were wanted different rates. It would be difficult to administer, and we passed that. And today, kung hindi natin ginawa nung unang panahon niya, baka ang piso na sa 100 na during that time. It served us well during the global financial crisis. And when President Aquino came into office, the debt to GDP was going down below 50 already, or 51%. Under President Aquino, it went down to 41%. Then, at the end of President Digong, it is at 61, 62%. Which the BBM administration inherited, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And today, there are comparisons also. We can discuss this as well. Na ang 12% VAT daw sa Pilipinas mataas compared to our neighbors. That is partially true, but the total effect of VAT is roughly 6% lang. Why is that? There are many exemptions. Halimbawa, what did we accept? Kung ikaw ay kumain ka sa palengke, bumili ka sa palengke, walang VAT. Bumili ka sa turo-turo, walang VAT. Bumili ka sa farmer ng produkto, walang VAT. Bumili ka sa sari-sari store, walang VAT. Ang export natin, katulad sa buong mundo, when you export, VAT free yan. Hindi kasama sa VAT yan. A senior citizen, may VAT discount yan. So on and so forth. So if you add it all up, the effective VAT rate is 5 to 6% in the Philippines.
Nabanggit nyo nga, Secretary, no, na you don't mind being called a taxman dahil meron naman yung pros and cons.
I don't mind being I don't mind being responsible with the fiscal policy of the nation.
Yes, yes.
Our revenue collection effort today is roughly 16%. Okay?
Yes.
So that's pretty low compared to other. More or less, we're at par with the region. Okay, at 16% revenue effort.
Yes.
We're way below that of European countries because the European countries have a high tax system. So sila medyo 40% dyan.
But
in the U.S., it's roughly about 25%. Yeah.
Right, but these are countries that also have
massive social protection.
Massive social safety nets, Secretary. But anyways, you were saying.
Yung tanong ko lang, Secretary.
That's correct.
But
they have higher levels of income to begin with. That's why they have higher social safety net and higher taxes.
Correct.
In the case of the Philippines, we are still a lower middle income country. So darating din tayo darating din tayo doon.
Sa higher taxes, sir? Or sa higher income?
No, darating tayo doon that we will have more social safety net also.
Okay. Okay.
And that the level of income of the Filipinos will be much higher.
Yung isang nire-raise lang
But
na...
you're talking about ano? Sige, Ronald.
Yung isang nire-raise lang, Secretary, ay ito kasing bagong tax na ito, parang double taxation ito. Dahil yung earnings na sinesave nila, na-tax na yan eh. When they earned it, di ba? Dumaan na yan sa taxation. Tapos nung nilagay nila sa savings, itatax ulit. So yun naman yung criticism ng iba.
Alam mo,
Na nakadoble na silang taxation.
Yes, naintindihan ko yan. Halimbawa, ang korporasyon, pag may income yan, may tax yan. Pag nagbigay ka ng dividendo, may tax ulit yun. So double din yan. Di ba? Yes, we understand that. And like I said, frankly speaking, kasama yan sa buong mundo, those are supposedly best practices. Kahit in our neighbors, ganun din ang taxation. When you have an income, a regular income, you pay tax. When you have passive income, you pay taxes as well. Alam mo, yung passive income, generally, pangmayaman yan. Kasi yung ordinaryong tao, walang passive income yan. Generally speaking.
Marami din middle income earners, I think, sir, that are just putting their money in time deposits, like I said, so they could get safe, predictable returns.
I agree
Pensioners,
Yes. Yes, I agree totally that there are. But then again, the data of the Bangko Sentral, and this was discussed in Congress, by and large, that 0.4% would be the richest in the country, essentially.
Yeah.
And yes, it is true that there are upper middle income who have savings. So that was debated in Congress. You know, it's beneficial for me if we didn't have a tax on that as well, right?
yeah.
May profile ba kayo nitong 0.% na ito,
Yeah.
Secretary? May profile kayo niyan? Paano, alam ko, marami sa mga pinakamayayaman, nasa Cayman at saka sa Panama yung kanilang pera.
Parang ikaw.
Alam mo, posible yan, but because of anti-money laundering, hindi na ganun kadalis ilabas yung pera sa Pilipinas. And that's why it's beneficial to us also that the money remains here. So I would assume that many are in our banks as well. Yes.
Secretary, you're speaking of responsibility for the fiscal policy. And sinabi nyo nga,
Yes,
implementer lang naman kayo ng mga batas. Are you planning, kasi your predecessor was talking about possible fiscal collapse because of yung
Military.
pension,
Military
of the
pension.
military and other uniformed personnel. Are you planning to revive that in the incoming 20th Congress? Yung proposal na yon. And nagreklamo na rin yung Department of Budget and Management na meron naman daw mga bagong proposal ngayon for additional ayuda programs na hindi na daw tayo talaga, hindi na daw makakayanan ng budget nyo. Ano yung mga balak nyo in connection with this? Because you are submitting the budget and you will be asked to participate din naman, di ba? Even if you have finalized the budget na.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, that's correct. Okay. So on the MUP, there's really this debate all over the world, no? So dito sa Pilipinas, yung mga empleyado natin sa gobyerno, may pension fund na yan sa GSIS, hindi kinukuha sa budget yan. Yung empleyado ng privado sector, may pension fund yan sa SSS. O nga pala, let me also say that the SSS will increase the benefit packages of our pensioners soon. Okay? So that's number 2. Now, number 3, in many jurisdictions, the military pension is in the budget. Okay? Of course, I agree that it would be better. It would be better to have their own pension system outside of the budget or an off-budget item. I agree with that. Okay? The question is, when do you do it? Okay? Because there is an upfront cost to do these reforms. And that upfront cost is also huge. I don't have the figures with me right now. Halimbawa, you put them under GSIS, and that was my proposal, assuming they be treated like all the other government pensioners, meaning to say that the government contribution will be 12%. So lahat yan, dadagdagan natin yung budget ng 12%. Okay? So malaking cost din yan. And the payback takes time. Okay? Especially if you respect the old system and then you start only with the new entrants. Okay? So having said that, realizing that our debt to GDP today is at 60%, roughly there. When we bring that down, that is the best time to do the reform on the MUP.
Okay.
So
Is
it's
there,
a timing issue.
so
Yes.
there is
Oh,
a
hindi
plan
muna.
to bring it down, the
Yeah.
debt to GDP ratio, because lately I'm starting to notice in the press releases that you guys are citing 70% debt to GDP ratio as the international standard, whereas before we used to only rely on 60%. So ano na ba, po ba
60.
talaga yung ratio
Yes.
at this point?
Yeah, there are benchmarks. Yeah, there are benchmarks so that we're looking at globally. One is the debt to GDP ratio. Okay, that determines your ability to pay. Number one. And today, because of COVID, among many countries, that new number seems to be at 70. Okay? So the Philippines, we're far from that. We're 60. Thailand is much higher than the Philippines. Thailand is somewhere like 68, almost 70. Okay? Now, the other also is if you look at the net, meron din yung benchmark na general government debt minus some of our loans we owe to ourselves. Okay? So in general government debt, if you take a look at that metric, we're at about roughly 55%. So the idea, how do you reduce the deficit? Diba? So we want that number to go down, the debt to GDP or general government debt to GDP to go down. And that's why we are reducing the deficit. You will recall that the economy contracted by something like 9%, if I recall, during the pandemic. That is the worst since World War II.
Right.
Okay?
Right.
Our
Yeah.
deficit then was something like 8.5%, if I recall.
Right.
Okay? Today, our deficit is down to about, I think last year was 5.7%. So we are on track on fiscal consolidation. No? So that's one. The second area is to reduce your debt to deficit. Aside from reducing the deficit, is ensuring that your economy continues to grow. The idea is to grow out of your debt.
So
Okay? So today, the Philippine economy is roughly growing a little less than 6% since 2022. We are number 2, number 3, I think, in the region. One of the highest still in the world.
right.
So maganda naman yung GDP growth natin. Considering all the challenges, remember, we just came out of a pandemic when
Right.
BBM became president in 2022. Then you had the Russia-Ukraine war. You had supply shocks. You had the Russian-Ukraine war, which elevated inflation globally.
Right.
Okay?
Sorry,
so these
Sec.
are the challenges.
Yeah. Sorry,
no?
Sec. Just to
Yeah.
be very clear. So we're
Sure.
going
Okay.
with 70% now debt to GDP ratio, or it's still 60%. We're still going to follow 60% debt ratio.
Again, in so far as the Philippines is concerned, we want to reduce it even below 60.
Okay.
Okay?
Right.
There is another metric, general government debt. We want to reduce that as well.
Okay.
But like I said, the international standard today
Right. I know.
for
There's
economies like the Philippines is 70%.
right.
Yeah.
I'm aware, Secretary. There are varying standards, but it also is tied to the ability of a country to service their debt, right? But sorry, can I just circle back very quickly to the tax
Correct.
issue? Let me ask you directly. Do you anticipate at some point during the Marcos administration needing to introduce a new tax, a new one for real, just to close the budget deficit, which is already
Frankly, there
higher
are no
than last
plans
year?
for. We have not introduced new taxes. We only passed last year tax measures that have been on the table for previous years. But there have been no new tax measures being proposed by the administration. There is one left on the table, yung single-use plastic, if at all. But we're reviewing that. That is being reviewed at the moment and will be presented to the DOC in the future.
Okay. And then at one point, you also suggested raising capital gains tax and donors tax and estate taxes to 10%.
No, that was all part.
Oh.
Yes, that was all part of the CMEPA bill.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Which you
Now,
withdrew.
if you ask,
withdrew.
okay, because we already passed the CMEPA bill.
Yeah.
So those were among all of those being considered. So we tossed in all the possible ways to increase revenue,
Right.
which we thought were progressive. Okay, like halimbawa, estate tax that used to be 20%. It was brought down to 6%. Okay, so there were recommendations to bring that to 10%. Okay, so that was considered in the debates, and CMEPA decided not to go ahead with that as well.
Yeah.
And instead, among others, remember revenue loss, revenue gain. They wanted to bring down, let's say, friction costs or taxes on UITF, on mutual funds,
Yeah.
on, let's say, the stock exchange. Or where do you get the money to pay for the reduction? So one recommendation was, which was accepted, was the 0.4% who were exempted
Yeah.
from the passive income tax of 20%.
Yeah.
Yes.
Secretary, balikan ko lang yung MUP ha. Based on your financial and macroeconomic projections, mga at what point kaya will you be reviving the proposal for yung reforms in the MUP?
It's when we can afford it. Because like I said, there is also a cost to the reform.
Yeah.
Okay? And when we can reduce the debt to GDP below 60, then that would be a good time to implement the reform in the MUP. But today, it is not as bad as we think.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So not within the year.
Not within the year.
this
That's
first
correct.
year of the 20th Congress. Hindi siya not within this year.
Oh, definitely not. If at all, I expect that the debt to GDP will go further down. Depends on our growth rate. But maybe by 2028, it probably will be in the next administration.
Okay.
Secretary, malaking bahagi
Okay.
ng ating economy is still basically consumption, remittances, no, at
Yeah.
saka government spending.
Yes.
Kamusta yung status ng investments? Ng investments natin? Nag-i-increase ba siya?
Okay.
Kamusta yung ating manufacturing,
Yeah.
industry, agriculture, yung mga fundamental aspect ng ating economy?
Yes, that's what we're working on. I think, personally, I think we need to have a bigger manufacturing base. The president is now in the United States to talk about our trade policy with the U.S. That trade policy will be very important for our manufacturing as well. Aside from the trade policy, our security arrangements in the United States will also assist in our manufacturing capability moving forward. No? Yes, we need to develop more manufacturing. I think, let me give you an example. I think Batangas is doing better than many other provinces because we do have a manufacturing industry in Batangas. So many of our semiconductors, many of our exporters are in Region 4. Many of them are in Batangas. So many jobs are being created, and that's why you have higher incomes and you have less poverty in the province or in the region. So I think we should do that nationwide, and that's why we passed CREATE, to attract more investments. But because of all the global uncertainty, because of the problems with, you have a Cold War between the United States and China, you have a trade war between the United States and the rest of the world, I suppose, including that of China. And you have all this uncertainty because of the trade policy of the United States today. it is hindering our ability to attract investments. But once this trade policy is resolved, then it's possible that the Philippines will be able to get more investments, particularly for our manufacturing industry.
But isn't that about our comparative advantage? Because other countries, other neighbors are also experiencing those global developments or underdevelopments. And yet, Indonesia, Thailand, Malaysia, and Vietnam are getting much more investments than
Well,
we
I was
do.
going to say, is it all just external, or is it because there are a lot of domestic issues as well?
It's both. It's both. I agree with you. I agree with those observations. But let me point out also this way. The Philippines is an archipelago. Vietnam, understandably, is able to do that because of its proximity and their landlocked with China. So many of the products that Vietnam is exporting to the United States or to the rest of the world, more particularly to the United States, are essentially its raw materials and many of its products are coming actually from China. Okay? So tayo naman, we have a problem with China in the West Philippine Sea. And that's why it's harder to attract investments coming from China as well. But like I said, let's wait and see. I think we have the laws in place. Let's wait for the certainty of the trade policy of the United States. Once there is certainty, then the more investments will indeed take place.
Right.
Yes.
Secretary, we're running out of time, but we do need to talk about the budget. 6.8 trillion pesos is what the executive is proposing this year. Of course, that's a record high. We've been talking to a few people, for instance, Senator Ping Lacson, who said that he's been auditing the previous year's budgets and found massive corruption, and he actually called it, quote-unquote, mangled beyond recognition, right? And then we also know from speaking to Congressman Toby Tiangco some months ago that the president himself was very unhappy with the 2025 budget, this year's budget, and he had wanted to veto more items, except he ran out of time. So what did you guys do differently this time?
From what I know, the president has also not released some of those items that were included in the budget for the simple reason that we are ensuring that we have a lower deficit. Okay, so we're managing the fiscal space. Okay? So marami dyan hindi rin mari-release, sa totoo lang. Okay? Having said that, yes, the president is well aware. The president sat down with the cabinet members to discuss the agency by agency, the budget that we will be submitting to Congress. 30 days, within 30 days after the SONA, and the priority of the president will be in human resource development. The biggest budget will be roughly for education, almost 1.2 trillion for next year, more or less. That would be both elementary, high school, and tertiary education, thereabouts. Of course, healthcare, agriculture, law and order, and digitization. Yeah.
Do you know roughly how much?
Secretary, habol ko lang, because you came
let me
under fire as
sorry,
well.
Ami, sorry. Let me just follow up quickly. Do you know roughly how much will not be released? Sabi niyo po, there's line items that at this point.
I think there will be, more or less about 80 billion.
80 billion from the 2025 GAA.
More or less.
Okay.
That's correct.
Thank
more
you.
or less.
Yes, Secretary, you were talking
Amy, you
about
wanted to ask?
being an implementer of the Congress nga, no? Because you came under fire for that circular that required all GOCCs to turn over their savings to the National Treasury. Ano po yung mga binabalak niyang reforms along that line? Kasi I think kayo yung naging magnet for the criticism.
Yes. There was, that was in the 2024 GAA. In the program fund, there was a section there. There was a section there, a provision there, mandating the DOF to come out with a circular and to implement that particular provision.
Yes.
Okay. My understanding of that
Yes.
is they were doing something like a Bayanihan 3. Okay? Bayanihan 3. Remember during COVID, we had Bayanihan 1 and 2. Okay?
Yeah.
And then ito, COVID recovery pa rin for the economy, for the fiscal health of the economy, and to sustain our economic growth, there was a suggestion made in the budget to tap idle GOCC funds that are not being used. Okay? And that's what we did, and that's what we implemented. Correct. So that's my understanding of that provision, yes.
Secretary, going into the SONA, ano ba yung indications na magiging main economic program na ilalabas ni Presidente dito sa parating na SONA na ito? A very defining SONA. Labas na ng kalahati ng kanyang term.
Yes. Correct. Okay. Essentially, we are following the Philippine Development Plan. We're also doing a catch-up on human resource development. Okay? So far, when it comes to employment numbers, the labor participation rate, so it's continuing some of the reforms. The labor participation rate today is at an all-time high. That's roughly at 65%. You roughly have about 52 million Filipinos in the labor force today. About 70% of them, more or less, are salaried and wages. Unemployment is at an all-time low. Of course, underemployment is still double digit, no? You know, when I add the unemployment and the underemployment, I call that my misery index. Okay? But having said that, our labor statistics are improving. And because of that, we expect that the Philippines by 2030 will be one of the biggest consumer markets in the world as well. No? Having said that, we are on track to reduce poverty incidence. In 2023, poverty incidence is down to 15.5%. We're well on track to hit 9% by 2028. So that is essentially the Philippine Development Plan that we are following. We're making changes to the PDP as well after the first 3 years. And like I said, we have to do a lot more catch up on human resource development. No matter how good your infrastructure is, ang gagamit yan tao.
Yeah.
Kung ang tao edukado, he can use that infra more productively.
Right.
With regard to DPWH, we understand that we must make improvements in efficiency, in executing the budget, in choosing the right flood control projects. Okay? As stated earlier, I was watching you guys earlier. I agree totally. I don't think we need 10,000 flood control
How can you watch
projects
that?
nationwide. I think we need to focus on certain areas first where there is economic activity. Halimbawa, Metro Manila, Region 3, Region 4. That has all been discussed as well. And like I said, we have to choose the right projects with the highest multiplier, economic multiplier effect to ensure that the economy grows sustainably at a faster rate than 6%, because it can be done. So all the work is being done right now, and the President will make those announcements during the SONA.
Do we already know at this point how much the DPWH is asking for next year in terms of for flood control projects, sir?
I don't know exactly, but it will probably be 200 to 250 billion, more or less.
Okay.
The DPWH in the NEP, more or less today, is at about 850. But again, it's the proper selection of those projects.
Yeah.
That is the key. Yeah.
That is a good place to leave this discussion. But my producers are reminding me, sir, that we do have a long-standing invite to you to guest on our current affairs series called Long Take. So if you could grace us, give us some time, that would be great, so we could talk more about these issues and really flesh them out. But for now, thank you so much for talking to us and shedding some light on some of these issues.
Salamat,
Yeah, thank
Secretary.
you for having me. Looking forward to being with you again soon. Maraming salamat.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you,
That was
Secretary.
Department of Finance Secretary Ralph Recto.
Di ko na natanong yung Maharlika.
Marami pang tanong eh, marami pa.
Marami pa. There's certainly a lot,
Yeah.
but we've run out of time. Nag-circle back tayo to flood control projects. No?
Yeah.
Thank you for joining Storycon today. I'm Pumintuan, Editor-in-Chief of the Philippine Star. Ronald Llamas, a resident political pundit. Join us again tomorrow, 4 p.m. for Storycon. I'm Regina Lay. We are One News, all sides, all the time.
This is the Story Conference Group or the Storycon Group.